The champagne glass slipped from Rebecca Carter's hand as her mother, Sophie, fell to the marble floor. Foam gathered at Sophie's mouth while guests screamed. All Margaret Collins could think was, well, that wasn't supposed to happen to her. Only 2 hours earlier, her house had been glowing with celebration. At 70, she'd just sold her consulting firm for $23 million. Her son Luke had insisted on throwing the party. "Mom, you deserve this," he'd said warmly. "Let Rebecca handle everything." Rebecca, the daughter-in-law who normally hated hosting, was suddenly perfect, arranging flowers, polishing crystal, smiling like a magazine hostess. The transformation should have been a warning. While chatting with an old business partner, Margaret saw Rebecca near the drinks table, looking around before pulling a small vial from her purse. She poured its contents into a glass, the one with the tiny chip Margaret always used. Margaret didn't shout. She watched. When Rebecca offered the glass, saying sweetly, "You look tired. Have some champagne," Margaret accepted it. Then, 10 minutes later, she switched it with Sophie's drink while Rebecca bragged about her new bracelet. Minutes later, Sophie murmured, "This champagne tastes interesting," and collapsed. Rebecca screamed, "Mom, call 911." Margaret knelt beside the convulsing woman, her eyes calm. She'd just watched a murder fail by inches. At the hospital, doctors said it was acute poisoning unknown source. Margaret overheard the word alkaloids. Someone had chosen a rare plant-based toxin. Rebecca paced in designer heels, repeating, "Poor Mom, I can't understand how this happened." Margaret's voice was smooth. "It's lucky she didn't drink much champagne." Rebecca froze. "Champagne? You think that caused it?" "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing," Margaret said lightly. Rebecca's face paled. Luke sat silent, watching. Later, when Luke urged, "Mom, maybe stay with us tonight. I'd feel safer," Margaret smiled. "No, dear. I'll be fine." Back home, she poured herself a clean glass of champagne and began her own investigation. Their finances told the story. Luke's failing architecture firm, Rebecca's unprofitable boutique, an extravagant house and luxury cars all unpaid for. Over 5 years, she'd given them nearly $200,000 gifts, not loans. They must have seen those as advance inheritance. The next morning, Rebecca called. "You didn't feel sick, did you?" "Not at all," Margaret replied. "Oh, good," Rebecca said quickly. "The doctors think Mom took something on an empty stomach." Lies. Sophie organized her medication like clockwork. Then Luke arrived with pastries. "Mom, you're 70. Living here alone with all that money. It's a lot to manage. Rebecca and I found this wonderful place, Sunset Manor. A retirement home. More like a resort. Medical care, activities, safety. The entrance fee's only $400,000. Margaret smiled coldly. "I'll think about it." That afternoon, Margaret called Charles Davenport, her longtime lawyer. "Charles," she said steadily, "someone tried to poison me." He listened without interruption, then said, "Don't talk about this over the phone. Come to my office." An hour later, Margaret was sitting across from him, recounting everything in detail. "Even if we test the champagne, proving intent will be difficult," he warned. "She could claim it was harmless." "Then we'll find proof," Margaret replied. Charles grew serious. "If they're after your money, they might try something else first, legal guardianship. They'll say you're losing capacity. Once they control your person, they control your estate." The nursing home idea suddenly made perfect sense. "What should I do?" she asked. "We start by documenting your competence. Then I'll restructure your assets, trusts, directives, surveillance. If they try again, we'll be ready." 2 hours later, she left his office protected by new legal armor. Charles added quietly, "If they failed once, they'll try again. Get cameras, alarms, panic buttons." That night, Rebecca called, pretending concern. "Mom's home, but she doesn't remember much. The doctor says that's normal." "How convenient," Margaret muttered once the call ended. She gazed at her quiet house. "They think I'm an old woman they can trick. Let's see who outsmarts whom." By next morning, technicians were wiring her home with motion sensors. To the neighbors, it looked like overcaution. By evening, a courier brought notarized papers, a new will and trust. Luke's inheritance cut to $50,000 a year. Rebecca, nothing. Everything else charity. Then came the knock at the door. Luke and Rebecca again, wearing their worried faces. "Mom, we feel terrible," Rebecca said, voice trembling. "If something we brought made Mom sick." "I'm sure it wasn't anything you brought, dear." They exchanged nervous glances. "We just want you safe," Luke added. "Maybe stay with us until things calm down?" Margaret smiled faintly. "You're right. Anything could happen at my age. That's why I updated my will." Their smiles froze. "Your will?" Rebecca echoed. "Yes, it was terribly outdated." They left soon after. Through her camera feed, Margaret watched them arguing in the car. Rebecca was furious. Luke tried to soothe her. Margaret poured herself wine and whispered, "Round one, to me." The next day, Sophie Carter arrived unannounced, pale but determined. "Margaret, I need to talk to you. Rebecca said I had a medication reaction, but I don't take any medication. I remember the champagne tasting strange, bitter, and I saw her near the table with a small bottle." Margaret met her gaze. "She tried to poison me. I switched the glasses." Sophie's face went white. "She tried to kill you, and I almost died instead." They sat in silence. "What will you do?" Sophie asked. "Give them exactly what they want," Margaret said, "but not how they expect." After Sophie left, Margaret called Emily Rhodes, a private investigator she'd worked with years ago. "Emily, I need everything on my son's finances, bank accounts, loans, insurance." Emily hesitated. "That's personal." "I'm aware. Give me 48 hours. 2 days later, Emily called. "It's worse than you think. The house is refinanced 3 times, $80,000 in credit card debt, Luke's firm losing money for 2 years. And Rebecca? She took out a $500,000 life insurance policy on you 6 months ago. She's listed as beneficiary, claimed she was your caregiver." Margaret froze. "They've been planning this for months." "One more thing," Emily added. "Luke's been paying a Dr. Howard Levinson geriatric psychiatrist, small consultation fees." Margaret called Charles. He confirmed the name. "Levinson's known for declaring seniors incompetent when families need control. Be careful." That night, Luke and Rebecca returned with forms for Sunset Manor and a power of attorney giving Luke full financial authority. Margaret pretended to hesitate. "It's a lot to process," she said. "Let me think overnight." They warned her, the unit might be gone by tomorrow. "Then we'll see tomorrow," she said calmly. After they left, she called Charles again. "Prepare something for me. Tomorrow morning, we end this." Friday arrived gray and drizzling. Luke and Rebecca came early, excitement barely hidden. "Have you decided, Mom?" "I have," Margaret said, handing them the signed Sunset Manor forms and the power of attorney. Luke's hands shook as he took them. "This is the right decision. You won't regret it." They were still reviewing her accounts when the doorbell rang. "Ah, that must be Charles," Margaret said. But it wasn't Charles Davenport. 2 detectives stood at the door. "Mrs. Collins, we're here about a suspected poisoning at your home." Rebecca went rigid. "That was my mother's accident." "Actually," the detective said, "the toxicology report showed oleander extract a deadly poison. The champagne you served tested positive. Someone deliberately spiked it." Luke stared at his wife. "Rebecca, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything," she cried. The detective held up a document. "We also found a life insurance policy you took out on Mrs. Collins, $500,000, naming you as beneficiary." Rebecca turned to Margaret, desperate. "Tell them this is insane." "I saw you pour poison into my glass," Margaret said evenly. "I switched the drinks. Sophie drank what you meant for me." Rebecca's eyes widened with fury as the handcuffs clicked. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done." "Oh, I know exactly what I've done," Margaret replied. Luke sank into a chair, pale and silent. After the police left with Rebecca, Luke sat slumped among the scattered papers. "She said it was just to protect you," he murmured. "She told me you were becoming forgetful, that the money would help us get back on our feet." Margaret's voice was calm. "You knew she planned something." He nodded weakly. "I thought she'd scare you, not this." Margaret asked for his phone, scrolling through messages. "Rebecca, did you talk to Mom about Sunset Manor?" "Luke, yes, she's considering it. Rebecca. Good. By Sunday, she'll be begging us to take care of her. Margaret handed the phone back. You knew. Luke buried his face in his hands. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. She studied him, her son, her failure, her heartbreak. There's one thing you should know, she said. The power of attorney you signed, it's fake. It gives you control over an account containing exactly $1. My real assets are secured in trusts you can't touch. If you're convicted of conspiracy, you'll lose even that. He whispered, You've destroyed my life. No, she said quietly. You destroyed it yourself. 3 months later, Rebecca Carter was sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder. Luke Collins received 3 years for conspiracy. Lily Collins, 16, called her grandmother often. I'm so sorry, she'd said. I never knew what they were doing. I know, sweetheart. None of this is your fault, Margaret told her. She met Sophie Carter for coffee twice a week now, 2 women bound by betrayal and survival. Sophie once asked, Do you regret how it ended? Margaret thought for a moment. I regret that it had to, but I don't regret protecting myself. Her lawyer, Charles, later confirmed that the insurance company voided Rebecca's policy and Luke's creditors were seizing his assets. When he asked if she wanted to buy their foreclosed house, Margaret smiled. No, let someone else have it, someone honest. That evening, she sat in her garden among blooming roses, sipping wine. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lily. Grandma, I got accepted to Northwestern pre-law just like you said. Margaret smiled. Maybe that's the real victory, she thought. Not revenge, but ensuring the next generation chooses better. She gazed at the sunset, spilling gold across her lawn. At 70, she'd learned the difference between being old and being powerless. And anyone who underestimated Margaret Collins had paid dearly for that mistake.